history. It began with an overwhelming wave of rockets, thousands of them crashing into an unsuspecting Israel. Israel's famous Iron Dome system, which you can see in action here, intercepting some of those rockets, built to detect hundreds of these rockets at a time and intercept them mid-air, was effectively overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of rockets, thousands upon thousands, that were fired by Hamas in one go. Even now, 10 days after that attack, and after 10 days of sustained Israeli bombardment of Gaza using fighter jets, Hamas continues to fire rockets into Israel, which raises the question, where are they firing these rockets from? How are they hiding their rocket positions from Israel? Isn't Israel hyper alert and hyper aware at this point of time, with its eyes wide open about where the firing is taking place? So what explains the rockets still flying in from Gaza? Air raid sirens continue to ring in Israeli cities, including the capital Tel Aviv, and the shroud of fear still lingers in neighborhoods that were struck even 10 days ago. Now, Israel, a country, viewer, with an extraordinary level of high technology in its defense systems, was still unable to defend against what Hamas terrorists unleashed on October the 7th. But there's reason to believe that alongside Israel's campaign to destroy Hamas, that is set to begin anytime now from the ground as well, Israel will also be escalating the level of its weapons technology. A British newspaper, The Telegraph, reports suggest that Israel may augment its Iron Dome anti-rocket system, which fires missiles to hit the incoming Hamas rockets, with a new system called Iron Beam. This is a system that won't be replacing Iron Dome, but will augment it. In this system, the Iron Dome's missiles are replaced with a high-powered laser beam. Now, this laser beam is focused on an incoming projectile, like a rocket or a UAV or a drone or whatever it is, until it disintegrates in the air. Now, this system called Iron Beam was unveiled in 2014, quite a long time ago, and it was scheduled for service entry into the Israeli Defense Forces by 2025. But that could happen way sooner, says these reports, given the current security threat perspective and Hamas continuing to fire such rockets. And remember, it's not just about Hamas, it's also about Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon. They're firing rockets and they've got missiles as well that could require a much more advanced anti-rocket/missile system. Now, the Iron Beam has several advantages over Iron Dome. The most obvious being that the system can destroy far more enemy projectiles much more quickly, theoretically, than Iron Dome. On the other hand, the Iron Beam isn't an all-weather weapon like Iron Dome, which means if it's raining, the weather is bad, its effectiveness comes down considerably, since raindrops would scatter and dilute the potency of the Iron Beam's lasers. The Iron Beam system would therefore need to be deployed alongside Iron Dome, with the laser beams and missiles working in tandem to take care of their distributed share of incoming Hamas rockets. Now, these things are called directed energy weapons. There's no real projectile which flies out from a system and goes and hits another rocket. It's simply a Star Wars-style laser beam, a high-powered laser beam that is pointed at an incoming projectile and is focused on it until the enemy material disintegrates in the air. It all sounds very futuristic, but let me tell you that this class of weapons called directed energy weapons are a reality. The United States has them, has deployed them. India is building directed energy weapons as well. China claims to have directed energy weapons. Israel, which has been on the cutting edge of defense research for a very, very long time, has been known to be, researching quite a lot in this field as well. And that's why the Iron Beam, which was scheduled to enter service sometime in 2025, could actually come into service much earlier. Because remember, October the 7th has completely changed the security perspective for Israel. Israel once again sees the Hamas attack of October the 7th as a reminder of the existential issues that Israel has always faced. I want to go straight to the ground to talk about this, because this is in many ways representative of how Israel is not only seeing the threat of Hamas, but is also seeing the requirement for high technology even after it has pounded many parts of Gaza into oblivion. Gaurav Sawant, who's been reporting fearlessly from the front lines of Israel and Gaza for over 10 days now. He's with us live. Gaurav, I wanted to quickly ask you about this story that we've been putting out for our viewers on the iron beam system. Throughout your reporting, Gaurav, we've noticed in the background the Iron Dome system activating the air raid sirens, the interception of rockets over your head. It's come to a point where it doesn't even startle you anymore. I noticed that when rockets are flying overhead and interceptions are taking place by the Iron Dome, you don't even flinch. It's become completely normal for you. And that's perhaps one of the reasons why Israel is now, learning lessons about how the Iron Dome didn't adequately take care of all those incoming rockets. And now the Iron Beam is being accelerated into service, Gaurav.
Shiv, you're absolutely right. It's a prototype which is being accelerated, not yet accepted completely into the system, but it's literally trial by fire and baptism by fire as far as Israel is concerned. The Iron Dome was completely overwhelmed, not just on the 7th, but even subsequently when a volley was fired. And this is where Israel believes that it can't be just Hamas. It's a military mind. It's perhaps the Iranian army that studied the Iron Dome down to the last detail and told Hamas how to overwhelm the Iron Dome system. Also, each missile that intercepts the incoming rockets and missiles is extremely expensive, takes time to make, and several of these interceptors have now had to be brought from the United States of America after a series of barrages that were fired by the Hamas and continue to be fired by the Hamas even as we speak, Shiv. And that's exactly why this Iron Beam system, which is a prototype, has actually been tried. And according to some, and these are, of course, we still have to hear officially from the IDF. We don't have an official version on this, but apparently it was very effective last night in intercepting incoming rockets. Now, Shiv, Hamas has actually increased and improved its rocket and missile delivery system. Earlier, the rockets would only hit this border area where I am right now, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, maximum 30 to 50 kilometers. Now they have rockets that are actually targeting central Israel, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So that makes the threat all the more greater as far as Israel is concerned. And that is why the Iron Beam system works more effectively. You don't have to wait for America to supply more in projectiles, and you don't need that Tamir system to identify the Iron Beam. Works very, very effectively, at least as of now, Shiv. Prototype just as yet.
Gaurav, stay with me. We've got some breaking news coming in. This is very, very big. Israel's foreign ministry has just released a picture suggesting that there are foreign nationals who are either missing or murdered in the Hamas terror attack from 41 countries, including India. Murdered and missing foreign nationals list officially released now by Israel from countries, from 41 countries, including India. I just want to play that out for you in just a moment. We've got that picture here. It says, this isn't our fight against Hamas, it's the world's fight. Bring them home. Murdered and missing foreign nationals from 41 states. Very, very carefully mentioned. Murdered and missing nationals from 41 states, and those countries include Austria, Argentina, Australia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, India, Ireland, Italy, Estonia, Eritrea, Colombia, China, Chile, Canada, France, Germany, Kazakhstan, and the list goes on to list 41 countries. But this is very big. It lists India as well in that current list. So we're going to try and get some clarity on that. This is a Twitter handle that is operated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. Gaurav, the Israeli Foreign Ministry putting out a graphic about murdered and missing foreign nationals. They say the current count is 158 murdered, 103 missing of foreign nationals, and India is included among them. Can you throw any light on this, Gaurav?
Shiv, there are two aspects to this. One, people of Indian origin, Indians who are living here, Indians who are a part of the Israeli system, including
Right.
security forces. Two, Indian caregivers who are here in Israel. One caregiver was also in conversation with her family in India when terrorists came in, and she stayed. Shiv, there are a large number of Indian caregivers here staying with the aged, staying with the elderly, and especially in and around the area where we are, the kibbutz, the settlements, the villages, the small towns in this area, in health centers and in old age homes. They're excellent caregivers, very loving. And one Indian caregiver lost her life in that Hamas terror attack. There are also some people of Indian origin, Jews who now live here, are citizens of this country, but of Indian origin. Three of them made the supreme sacrifice of their lives fighting the Hamas terrorists. So when Israel says that people of 41 countries made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in this Hamas terror, and this isn't Israel's war on Hamas, it's the world's war on radical Islamist terror, it's quite similar to what happened in 26/11. Of course, at a different scale. Shiv, you'd recall that the people of several countries were killed when 10 Pakistani terrorists attacked Mumbai at the Taj Hotel. You had American citizens who were killed. You had citizens of multiple countries who were killed in that terror attack on India. That's exactly what's happened here. People who are enjoying a music festival at Rim, or people who are staying in the kibbutz, a lot of people there from multiple countries were massacred by Hamas terrorist. Shiv. That's the ground reality of this country at this moment.
Thanks very much, Gaurav, for getting us that. Stay safe. We're going to see Gaurav's full ground report coming up at 5:30 p.m. Don't miss it. The most watched war reporter on the ground, Gaurav Sawant, is going to be giving you a full lowdown of what's happened today on day 10 since the attack on Israel. That's coming up at 5:30 p.m. Okay, now I wanted to just share some figures with you, viewer, because remember, the Israeli army is now massed around Gaza before what is expected to be a large-scale invasion of the Gaza Strip. I want to share some figures with you and some ratios, and then I want to talk about it with the scholar and the commentator who's put these out on his social media. The population of Gaza, viewer, is about 2.5 million, 2.5 million. The Israeli mobilization, the military mobilization, is about 560,000. Now, if you do the arithmetic, the ratio there is one Israeli soldier for every 4.4 Gazans. That's a ratio of 1:4.4. If you're with me so far, let me show you some other figures. In case the Israeli mobilization is not 560,000, but 390,000, that is removing 170,000 soldiers from Israel who may be deployed on the Lebanon border or the Syria border. In this case, that ratio of soldier to every Gazan becomes 1:6.4. Bear with me, I'll tell you why these figures are very, very significant and they tell a story by themselves. Now, if you account for the possibility of some soldiers on leave, 3 different shifts, the minimum ratio in any such invasion of Gaza becomes 1 Israeli soldier for every 25 people inside the Gaza Strip. That makes a ratio of 1:25. So this is called a soldier to adversary ratio and is a function of the effectiveness of any military operation. Let me just give you a comparison to show you why that 1:25 figure is so significant. The Allies is to people in Afghanistan ratio was 1:516. One Allied soldier is to 516 people in Afghanistan. In Iraq, that similar ratio was just a little lower at 1:412. In Israel, Gaza, which is of course geographically much smaller and different in many, many different ways, that counterinsurgency ratio becomes 1:25. Of course, there are many other complexities, including what happens to these figures if these soldiers are deployed elsewhere. But for the sake of argument, this counterinsurgency figure could be 1:25, which is an extremely overwhelming and powerful ratio for any kind of ground invasion that may be right ahead. The person who's crunched these numbers and put out this perspective is Abhijit Iyer Mitra. He's Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies and one of India's most well-regarded strategic affairs commentators. He's been reporting quite extensively on the Israel-Palestine war so far. Abhijit, explain this ratio to us. 1 is to 4.4, 1 is to 6.4, and then 1 is to 25. You've made that comparison very, very compelling. What does it translate to on the ground? What does it mean?
Thanks, Shiv. So, people don't realize how small Gaza is. I think people don't realize how small Israel itself is. In one day, you can drive from the north of the country, from the Lebanese border to the south coast, where it shares a border with Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. And Gaza is even smaller. If I put it in terms of Delhi, it's literally, South Delhi, say from, what's between inner and outer ring road, parts of South Delhi, that's it. If you put this in Bombay terms, it's literally, north and south of the Worldly Ceiling and maybe a bit more. That's about it. So what ends up happening a bit more, of course, but people need to understand size first. Second, this is completely flat land. There is literally no depression elevation in this land. And this is why the numbers matter. Basically, one guy with a gun, the magazine might have, say, about 7 to 15 to 20 bullets, depending on what your model is, is basically taking on about 25 people. That is a ratio which is very easy to deal with. An insurgency depends on completely overwhelming and invading army with numbers. You need numbers of 400:1 or above in order to bog the soldier down, to exhaust the invader, to tire him out, to hide behind civilians and things like that. Because, one soldier physically cannot check 400 people every day. But one soldier can check 25 people every day. 25 is very easy. It is within your attention span. So, the focus of the soldier is complete. And remember, 25 is assuming the entire population of Gaza. The women and children, because it's not cold and they're not wearing coats and things like that right now, will not be able to hide much under their T-shirts and shorts and things like that. Yeah. So it makes life a lot easier. The significance of this is we have never in history seen this kind of ratio of invader is to the invaded. If you want to use the term invasion, I believe it's a counterinsurgency operation. And it makes ground control extremely easy. Of course, there are factors, I think it's a big mistake of Israel leveling so many buildings, because this is what the Russians did in the first invasion of Grozny. And what the Chechens did was they found new tunnels under this rubble and they destroyed all the armored columns that went in. Of course, the Israelis won't make the same mistake of sending in armored columns without infantry, but it certainly makes the life of the average Israeli soldier so much more easier and very, very different. So it's not fair to compare it to what happened in Afghanistan and what happened in Iraq.
Abhijit, the ground invasion is expected to happen, like you said, a counterinsurgency operation. Israel has done this twice before, once in 2009, once in 2014. What would be the considerations this time around? There are many questions being asked. What would be the end game of this invasion or this occupation? What would Israel achieve by taking over this entire territory? My question to you is, what are the pointers that the Israeli Defense Forces and the political leadership will be thinking about before commencing this ground operation? Because it seems from all accounts that operation is going to happen.
So Shiv, my information is it already started last night with special forces. They haven't sent the bulk of the army in, but all the tools that we have for surveilling went offline. I guess the military censor took them all off. So we have absolutely no information of what's happening now. But see, the consideration from what we can tell, obviously they're not going to tell us what their plans are, but they're basically holding the population in a holding pattern, and they are shifting the population from the north to the south, which is mostly Gaza City. They are going to go into Gaza City. Now, what people don't realize is under Gaza City is a complete system of tunnels where Hamas hides out, where they hide ammunition, where they hide all kinds of things, their production facilities, so on and so forth. So they will go in, they will ensure that every building is cleared of civilians. They will go down into the tunnel system and destroy it. And it has to be done physically. Once that area is sanitized, they will move the entire population up north and then end up cleaning the south of tunnels and smuggling systems and rocket and terror production facilities. In many ways, it's kind of, think of it as your house getting painted. When your house is getting painted, you shift from one bedroom to another bedrooms to enable the painting to happen. And that's pretty much what they're planning on doing out here. My problem, and I think what a lot of commentators have pointed out, is what after that? Because, the problem doesn't just lie with Gaza. The entire leadership of Hamas is staying in five-star hotels in Qatar, in Doha. And, Ismail Hania's son drives around, one son drives around in a Rolls-Royce convertible. The second son was evacuated from Gaza on September 18th. So he allowed his people to die, but his own son was evacuated from there on September 18th via the Egyptian border. So, it begs the question, are we seeing a repeat, even though the military comparison to Afghanistan is wrong, the political comparison to Afghanistan, where, America was fighting the Taliban there, but the Taliban was controlled by Rawalpindi, ISI headquarters in Rawalpindi, which was never targeted. So what do you do here when the control and direction is coming from Doha, from Ismail Haniya and Khalid Mishal's house?
Very interesting, and the numbers are extremely compelling. We will continue to report, and we will also analyze all of these things before what is expected to be, a historic ground operation. Thanks very much, Abhijit. Appreciate it always for being here on 5 Live and letting us have your thoughts on this. On the other side of this very short break right here on 5 Live, we're taking you straight to the Israel-Gaza frontier, where India Today's Gaurav Sawant, Ashutosh Mishra, and the only channel from Lebanon, Ashraf Wani, report and bring you a ground's eye perspective of what daytime has looked like.
You are watching India Today. Powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company. Israel-Hamas blood feud returns.
Allahu Akbar!
All-out war engulfs West Asia.
Look at the massive destruction. So this is just a matter of 5 minutes.
Fearless reportage and exclusive news breaks.
You just heard those sounds of the blast.
Bombed out house here in Ashkelon in southern Israel. India Today is the only team which is reporting from the border.
India's biggest conflict reporters, live and exclusive. West Asia War through cameras. You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
As we are getting out of the emergency and admission department of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, and based on what we have heard from the doctors here at the department, maybe in the upcoming hours as we are getting out of the hospital, this hospital itself will possibly break down, with the situation getting dire in terms of the needs and essential supplies needed by the hospital. This is a part of an integral part of how is the image in Gaza for the time being, especially for Gaza's hospitals. As you know, Gaza, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital is one of the largest and major hospitals, key hospitals in the Gaza Strip, run by the Gaza government. For India Today, Rami Al-Mighari, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in middle Gaza Strip.
India Today has been reporting from the front line of Israel and Gaza. Reporters in the war zone covering every aspect in the Israel-Hamas war. The tanks are rolling towards Gaza for an imminent ground assault by Israel, and the world is watching. Here is what day 10 has looked like through the eyes of some of India's finest war reporters. Gaurav Sawant, Ashutosh Mishra, and the only Indian journalist in Lebanon, Ashraf Wani.
Air raid siren once again in Tel Aviv. Okay, nothing seen on the horizon, but cars have stopped. People are running towards an air raid shelter, and that alarm in the corner of the room tells people to move to safety as quickly as possible. So once again, Tel Aviv threatened by Hamas rockets. When you rush out of the room in an emergency, just make sure you pick up your passport and your mobile phone as you rush out. And grab something to eat. I still don't have, and people are rushing out of their rooms, heading towards the air raid shelter. That is the best thing to do, is rush to an air raid shelter. After you, sir. After you. So that's the air raid shelter, and that's where all the families are. So this is supposed to be a relatively safe place. All people have come to the staircase. People have come to the staircase because the staircase is relatively safe.
ये जो आप सुन रहे हैं, अचानक से सायरन बजा है इस समय टेल अवीव शहर से थोड़ी सी दूरी पर, और अचानक से सायरन बजने के बाद ये देखिए, रात को जैसे दरअसल शहर सो जाता है तब खतरा बढ़ता है। मैं भी अपने कमरे में सो रहा था और अचानक ये देखिए सायरन की आवाज़ सुनाई दे रही है। पूरा शहर ये शांत है और इसका मतलब है कि अचानक से हमला होने वाला और कहीं ना कहीं से रॉकेट आने वाला है और ये खतरा लगातार बरकरार है।
There is a mass movement that is taking place on both sides of the fence, very organized here in southern Israel where I can see it, and of course we are seeing images of what's coming from the Gaza side. While rockets are raining from the Hamas side, even this side. Like late last night, when we virtually retired for the day, there was a sudden rocket attack here in Tel Aviv, and fortunately, it was intercepted by the Iron Dome. And now, of course, we are told that even laser systems are being used to, completely decimate incoming rockets. So over the next several days, an attempt is being made, from what we've been told, by foreign powers. So the Americans want to evacuate their citizens, the British want to evacuate their citizens, and an effort is being made to evacuate their citizens as quickly as possible before the intensification of these operations take place. This entire area is being abandoned, is being evacuated, and it lies virtually abandoned. Whether it's Zikkim Beach or Ashkelon or Sderot, these were very upscale neighborhoods in southern Israel. These were like major tourist destinations, and now they lie completely abandoned. Virtually not a soul in sight. As you can just look all around me, every house now empty, and thousands and thousands. So if 500,000 people plus have moved out of Gaza Strip and Gaza City, and Israel wants 1.1 million people to move southwards. In southern Israel, also this entire area is being vacated. The last of the cars now leaving this place because there is an apprehension. So there is a twofold threat. We were near the Zikkim beach. It now that area has been completely closed off for all civilian movement. From the beach to 4 kilometers is just military zone. And why is it military zone? Because there's an apprehension that Hamas terrorists could use the sea route once again, or they could use paragliders and hand gliders to come in once again. And it's not to target civilians now because most of the civilians have moved out. It's to attack the supply lines of the Israeli army that is moving south. It's also to attack a number of Israeli security forces that are deployed virtually all along the roadside, on the road that leads to Gaza Strip. So the supply line could be attacked, their bases could be attacked, their cantonments could be attacked, their military locations could be attacked. All of that becomes extremely vulnerable, and that is why this entire area is being vacated. That's point one. Point two, Zikkim Beach, where we were just a short while back, and I've just sent out my report. It's being patrolled extensively. So where you'd watch sunbathers taking advantage of the sun, the sea, the sand in this area, right now you have no sunbathers. You have men and women in camouflage fatigues with their weapons cocked. It's not even as if they're taking any chances. Armed to the teeth, 3-tier defenses have been set up. The Navy out at sea, their coastal batteries, and then the soldiers on ground, and then also the reservists. They want to make sure that their supply lines cannot be interdicted by Hamas terrorists at all. While the Air Force, using their F-16s, and we put out those images on India Today, the F-15 and F-16s, they are decimating Hamas rocket launch sites. So how this operates, Nabila, is a twin-pronged, offensive. You have the Heron TPs. Herons are the long endurance unmanned aerial vehicles, endurance of up to 30 hours, 32 hours, 40 hours, depending on the mission. It can, of course, go up to 72 hours, that's 3 days. And they light up the target. They send that laser designator, the laser beam to the target after loitering around in that area, specifying that this is where the Hamas terrorists could be. And then the fighter jets come in and using that laser, they bomb that building where the terrorists could be. So all of that is happening with military precision right now as Israel waits to launch the ground offensive. Okay, हम लोग इस समय यहाँ से भागकर जा रहे हैं. We are running away to safety because the rocket alert has been sounded. Watch around. Be careful. A few folks. So we were here to do an interview, but suddenly there's a rocket alert and we have come to safety. While the Iron Dome is able to neutralize some rockets, but as
they're sending 12, 15 at a time. So one is full, most likely.
What do people of Israel want, Sapir?
We want peace, only peace. We want to live our life peace. We don't want war. We never attack by your own. We only defend ourselves. We are not attacking anyone. We just want to live our life in peace.
And that is actually not happening, because Israel says it was Hamas that attacked them. It was Hamas that killed 1,400 people in Israel,
Yes.
Injured over 2,000.
2,000, more than 2,000.
What exactly happened in Reim? Now a lot of information is there in public domain. What happened in Reim?
There was festival music in the kibbutz there, not in the base. And they are coming and they start slaughtering civilians who ran away.
And you had friends there.
I had friend there, yes. He managed to escape, but not all of them managed to escape. They raped them. They burned them alive. They did such a horrible thing to people there.
Does that traumatize you? Does that traumatize people like you when you hear of it?
Yeah, it traumatized all the people in Israel. It's very hard to accept it.
How do you deal with that trauma of Reim?
We are all together in this. We are fighting together because we know it's only together we can be strong. It's the only way.
The Zikim Beach area of South Israel. You have the army now deployed here in numbers. Earlier, this was the route that was used by the terrorists to infiltrate. Hamas terrorists had used this route when they infiltrated from air, land and sea. So this was the sea route of that infiltration. This is the southernmost tip of southern Israel. This entire area, whether it's Ashkelon, Zikim or Sderot, remains extremely vulnerable even now. So while people are talking about evacuation of a large number of people, 1.1 million people from the Gaza Strip, especially from North Gaza and Gaza City, these cities and towns are also being vacated. Whether it's Sderot or Ashkelon or areas around the Zikim beach, just look around. A very picturesque beach on the Mediterranean Sea. Usually you'd have thousands of people here, but not a soul in sight. In fact, the police and the army now deployed here, and the army is asking even the Aaj Tak and India Today team, asking me to leave from here because it's not safe to be here at the Zikim beach, for the simple reason the area remains extremely vulnerable. So while you have the Navy that's patrolling this, you have the army that's deployed here, you also have the coastal batteries that are constantly deployed here to ensure that this area does not remain vulnerable to infiltration by Hamas terrorists. But the threat remains. There were attempts made to infiltrate in Zikim beach even after the 7th of October, and that is why the army here is asking us to leave this place immediately. Clear and present danger. As thousands and thousands evacuate North Gaza, there are thousands who are also evacuating Sderot, Ashkelon and areas around the Zikim beach. An area that remains extremely vulnerable to Hamas infiltration on ground and rocket attacks on top. Both continue in numbers here. An attempt to find peace, but preparation very clearly for war. Just look around me, where you'd see thousands of tourists, not a soul in sight. This clearly is now war zone Israel, a war that Israel is preparing for, and it's an asymmetric war with Hamas using terror means to infiltrate against perhaps one of the most developed armies of the world. Gaurav Sawant, between Zikim Beach and Ashkelon in southern Israel for India Today.
There you see this all army Israeli with a massive deployment. And let me tell you, India Today is the first channel to reach here at ground zero at this position, because this has been totally restricted. You all the vehicles see, people have left the town. This is now totally a ghost town. These all vehicles belongs to the either civilians or the people from the forces, the armed forces, Israeli Defense Forces. Since all they have left this area, all these cars are now lying in open. Barely few people who are allowed, or mostly those who have been in the other parts, are still going to the places. So you have to see the armored vehicles being taken from there's a Beer Shiva. The Beer Shiva is a big town. All you see only the armed forces on the roads, heavily armed. And now because this remains one, and this is exactly, the gliders that was used. Perhaps the air territory was never violated before the Hamas, and this also exposes the Zionist state's preparation as far as their air defense is concerned, that this number of the gliders and terrorists came down and they just opened fire blindly, killed innocent civilians. This was totally, the state was caught unprepared. Now let me take you another back images. These are the armored vehicles, gun mount on that, heavy machine gun, light machine guns. This entire infantry and the artillery battalion is placed all over Puja, this area where there was a celebration happening. And within minutes when the gliders came down, there you see. You cannot count the number of tanks. If I say you, if I go, there are more than 100 tanks, I cannot count the number of tanks which are placed here in these images. You can see that is the preparation of Israel here. And then look at this, all these trucks are placed because as and when needed, these carriers will take the tanks further. This is the Gaza area. Now you see, just barely few kilometers from here is the terrain of Gaza. All you see, only and only the movements of the armed forces. And this was the place of a Nova festival. This is exactly the aerial terrain, and we are for the, look at this, the tanks are roaring in the desert. This is all major wing. All you see, the dust, it is because of the tanks to my left are advancing. Let me get you more clear images of the tanks here. You see, these tanks are advancing further. They are marching from this area, Reem to Gaza. Look at this dust. Now there is totally invisibility. You cannot move further. But I get you the images of these tanks which are roaring from Gaza armored vehicle. These are the exclusive images from the Reem area where the terror group unleashed massive firing, killed hundreds of the civilians. This is to bring you the exclusive images of the Iron Dome defense system of Israel, and which is effectively world's most strong air defense system. And in Reem area where Israel often, the Hamas terror group often launches a barrage of rockets, this is the air defense system which fires the counter rockets to neutralize all the effort. Now this is the Reem Kibbutz area, the village where the Nova festival was being carried out and Hamas terror group attacked. But this is the air defense system which neutralized their rockets. Of course, there have been heavy casualty for Israel, but now it is advancing further in Gaza to strike down all the terror groups and their source of weapon. But here, these kind of air defense system have been put all across Israel, which essentially neutralizes all the attempt of rockets firing by Gaza inside the Israeli territory. India today is at ground zero in southern Israel's Aroor town, and perhaps the last stretch of the town where you have the open terrain connecting to Gaza before you proceed for Be'eri Kibbutz. All these areas are now heavily guarded by the armed forces of Israel, and it is also open for the world media to see the kind of terror unleashed by the terrorists of Hamas group. The kind of attack it has done, killing innocent civilian women, children, and number of people. These people, the moment they heard probably there is attack, they were trying to flee from this place, but before they could, number of bullets were fired in a huge number. These bullets were fired. There you can see the toddlers, the small children, young kids, the people who were trying to escape. The footprints of the violence and the terror attack, blood spilled all over, shoes of perhaps the driver who was trying to flee, start the vehicle. Another side, there is a toddler seat made here inside and his toys or her toys. All you see, no human being alive in this part except the Israeli troops and the IDF. This explains the furious situation, the tension, and of course the terror attack by Hamas in Israel's southern part. In southern and bordering Sderot, with this report, I am Ashutosh Mishra for India Today.
During last 4 days, there was regularly the artillery fire coming in this area of Shabah, and this is the house which has been damaged by the artillery fire of the Israel. And in fact we are seeing continuously drones flying in air here. We can listen the sounds of those drones, which are equipped with the Israeli cameras. They keep vigil on these areas with those cameras, which are not only equipped with the cameras but also with the remote control bombs. If they see any kind of movement here of Hezbollah or any kind of activity of any other fighter group, they will drop the bomb from that aerial vehicle, or we can say drone, and target that. This is the sophisticated technology which is being carried out by the Israel to guard this loosest border in South Lebanon. I am here in the southern Lebanon in the city of Ankura. We are on the outskirts of Ankura on the beach of this Mediterranean Sea. This behind me is the main headquarters of the United Nations here in Ankura, which was bombed yesterday late evening by the jet of Israel army. Luckily the bomb fell outside the periphery of the UN headquarters and there was not any kind of damage reported from the UN base here. It is worth to mention that most of the UN peacekeepers in Lebanon are from India. There are also soldiers from Tanzania, from Sri Lanka, from Indonesia and other Asian countries, but the major chunk of these soldiers is from India, who are peacekeeping force here with the United Nations in Lebanon and currently deployed on different areas in southern border. We tried to get some kind of reaction from the UN officials here. They are not ready to speak, but this incident is being discussed all across the world, that if UN base is being targeted by the Israel, and what could be the condition of the people in the areas like Gaza and South Lebanon. So very reaction is coming from the Gulf countries after this bomb here in Ankura city of South Lebanon. This is the place which is the poorest border for the Israel, because you are seeing these mountains. These are part of the Palestine and controlled by Israel. In fact, these all areas are the part of Palestine, but on these mountains there is not the concrete wall what the Israel created in other parts of the of its country, particularly on the border with Lebanon here in South Lebanon. These mountains are free to enter into Israel because there is no any kind of surveillance, human surveillance on these. That is why you are listening these voices of the unarmed vehicles. Regularly during last 4 days round the clock, these drones of the Israel are roaming here in this area to keep vigil by their cameras and the explosive equipped these drones. If they see any kind of activity by the Hezbollah in the area, they will drop the bomb on the particular spot, because these drones are being controlled on the other side of mountain by the Israeli army. During last 4 days, there is regular exchange of fire between rockets and missiles between Lebanon and the South Lebanon and the Israel. And from this front, Hezbollah is fighting, and in case of any war, there will be this front which will be first opted by Hezbollah to fight Israel. Ashraf Wani in Shab city of the South Lebanon on Lebanon-Israel border in Lebanon.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Carrying their personal belongings in hand, hundreds of thousands of Gazans are walking for hours with their children. Lakhs of civilians living in North Gaza have fled their homes as Israel prepares for a ground invasion following punishing air raids against Hamas. Israel has placed the Hamas-ruled Gaza Strip under complete siege, cutting off basic utilities. Over 2 million people are struggling for clean water, food, fuel and medical supplies. There has been no electricity in Gaza for days.
I went to fill up my car with fuel, but the station had run out. Only 2 trucks can work and the diesel in them will run out soon as well. To whom can we complain? To God? There is no water at all. And no gas or electricity to make the water work. No one wants to give us water. All this is because of the war. It destroyed us. They bombed the whole square and destroyed everything here.
The Israeli airstrikes have killed thousands of civilians. Hospitals are overwhelmed with the sheer number of the injured.
All US citizens are feeling abandoned and feeling that they are left alone. We really need the US embassy to help us getting out from here as soon as possible. Please help us get evacuated.
The Israeli army has blamed Hamas for deliberately operating from civilian areas and using civilians as human shields. Amid the ongoing bombardment, Israeli army asked all Gazan civilians to move towards the south for their own safety.
Our war is not with the people of Gaza. Let me say that again. Our war is not with the people of Gaza. In stark contrast to Hamas's war crimes, Hamas's crimes against humanity, we are calling on the residents of Gaza City to evacuate southwards for their own safety.
The humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is rapidly deteriorating. The civilians are paying for the war started by Hamas terrorists, whose leaders are in foreign shores away from the perils of war. With Rami Al-Meghari in Gaza, Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Co-powered by Blender's Pride Glassware, My Life, My Pride. The bold look of Kohler.
Gaza humanitarian crisis worsens. Death, devastation and destruction. Gazans get final ultimatum. Land of millions now in shambles. The suffering of Gaza. Top focus on 6 p.m. Prime.
Good evening. You're watching 6 p.m. Prime here on India Today. I'm Akshata Nandagopal. A result of what we've seen in the last 10 days of the conflict between Israel and Hamas is a humanitarian crisis playing out in Gaza. There's been a deadline, an evacuation deadline issued by Israel, warning Gazans to leave or face repercussions. Many have packed up their bags, have tried desperately to flee from everything that they defined as home. Some have successfully left, many still stranded, even as the United Nations has said very clearly that an evacuation isn't the answer. We're going to be putting the focus on the plight of Gazans over the next 30 minutes. A look at the headlines first. Israel-Hamas war continues on day 10 as Israel readies for ground invasion. 5 hours provided to Palestinians to evacuate North Gaza. Massive escalation in war after Israel forces bombed Hezbollah terror pods. You've got Hezbollah killing the top Israeli commander. Hezbollah's bid to blind Israel forces caught on cam damages Israeli tech at border. Cameras monitoring equipment all damaged. Gaza humanitarian crisis worsens with dwindling medical supplies and hospitals slowly turning into morgues. The Gaza-Egypt border set to reopen to allow humanitarian aid. Other stories we're tracking this evening. Big verdict in the Supreme Court on abortion case. Top court rejects plea to terminate 26-week pregnancy. Says right to life prevails over mother's choice. A massive decision by International Olympic Body. Cricket included in 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. 5 new games, including cricket, in 2028 Olympics. Heartbreaking images continue to pour in from strife-torn Gaza, where people have run out of medical supplies, of water. There's no electricity, which will also show you how Gaza looks right now because of this conflict, because of all supplies being cut off. Let's begin by getting you some of those images. This is North Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp that shows the destruction caused to buildings and streets following Israeli strikes. Gaza has been, of course, under intense Israeli